Hello, one and all, and welcome to another episode of Omnipresent Information Connection. My name is Noah Hansen, and I am here with Kevin Peterson. How are you doing today, Kevin?
I am blessed and highly favored.
We've got an awesome podcast for you today, and this podcast is going into deep diving territory on the topic of the gift of presence.
So I hope you have a diving board because you're going to need it.
When we're talking about presents, what are we talking about, Kevin? We're not talking about Christmas presents, are we?
Or birthday presents.
No, not those either.
Right.
We're talking about being present in the moment you are in and being content with that. We've talked about this topic before in several different podcasts, and we'll be listing those off throughout this podcast. But we appreciate you being here with us today on this one to be able to talk about a further enlightenment gift of presence, because the last podcast was on the gift of enlightenment.
Yes.
So the Gift of Enlightenment podcast, if you haven't already listened to that one, was all about how when we reach enlightenment, it's not just reaching it and being in a state of nirvana for the rest of your life. Enlightenment is a continuous growing process. And the gift of enlightenment is knowing that you don't know it all so that you can share what you do know, but continuously grow in a positive direction.
Absolutely.
So if that sounds good to you listeners, make sure you check out the Gift of Enlightenment podcast after this one. But let's dive into it. As you know, listeners, this podcast covers 3 important areas of life, of learning, and that is ancestral, biblical, and scientifically accurate information. And we're presenting it in a new way because we want to share with you all the insights that we can possibly give you that can benefit your life, that can put some value into your everyday living experience. So we're real excited about this podcast. Kevin, let's dive into the ancestral aspects of the gift of presence.
The gift of presence, since the dawning of man and woman.
Indeed.
Yes. But since the beginning of humankind, people have had a presence about them all of their waking lives. Since Adam and Eve, all the way up until now, we have grown our presence to become a gift onto other human beings, to be able to rise above, to be the human element to the very essence of what people are looking for, and that's to be present within their presence, right?
Right.
So everyone, regardless of position or personality, can strengthen their presence. The power of presence shows how. The key is to cultivate the communication aptitude, mental attitude, and unique leadership style needed to connect with and motivate others. And that's what we're doing here tonight, is being able to bring you information that is not only inspiring, but something that you can be able to share with other people today.
Indeed, that motivational aspect is so important because if you aren't motivated, then you cannot continuously learn and grow in a way that you can retain it, that you're inspired by it, and that you can share with other people because you love the information that you're able to bring people. That's part of the gift of enlightenment.
Yes. And so when it comes to presence and the ancestral part of it, is that I learned a great many lessons from my ancestors, my grandma and my grandfather. And I would be able to sit and listen to their stories for hours on end. And I would be able to literally kind of picture in my mind where they were at, how the environment was, and they could really be able to, with words, be able to describe the environment, making the past present, and then making the presence of that information brought in a new way through their story.
Kevin, do you believe that people of past generations had more of an opportunity to remain present in the presence?
Yes.
To remain present in the present?
Yes, I clearly understood what you're saying, because there wasn't as much TV. There wasn't hardly any internet. There wasn't anything really in a distraction mode that would prevent you from being more of who you were raised to become in the first place, right?
Yes, and I believe we have a scientific study that we're going to be talking about later in this podcast that has a lot to do with this.
Absolutely.
The phones, the TV screens, all these different screens, and then all kinds of other distractions that have to do with media today really, I believe, take away from our gift of presence.
Right. And if you're old as I am, listeners, you would understand that the first gift that we got as far as communication was radio. To be able to communicate to another living human being, to be able to broadcast out a message, to be filling the room with other people's presence, right? And so we'd be filled with stories and different comedy skits and that sort of thing. But the presence that they had within our room, within our environment of our listening area, allowed us to be able to feel as if though we were there through all the different sound effects and the things that they did to be able to make that, what was back then a radio show, what we'd call a podcast today, so enlightening, so enriching, because they literally drew you in just by the power of their voice. And that made the presence in the environment worth listening to.
Right. It's the way that you resonate your inner being outwards that really has the impact, negative or positive, on the people around you. And as we've talked about in other podcasts, especially including the podcast in the Teachings of the Heart playlist on this YouTube channel, we talk about how people can pick up on your vibes or your frequency or things that are going on in your inner being just by taking one quick look at you, just by being in a room with you. You do have an impact that is actually being able to be scientifically proven accurate. That makes a difference in your environment.
Yeah, because I define presence as the ability to connect with and inspire others. When we think of someone who has a great presence, it's much more than just how they speak or how they interact in a meeting. It's really that they inspire you. You want to be around them. You feel connected to them. And that's what presence is all about.
Yes, and that's why we're talking about being the present, being the gift, while remaining present. So the present moment does not always mean that the past and the future aren't involved in it. And this sort of goes into a Bible verse that I want to be able to share with you. And this is 2 Peter 3:8. It says in 2 Peter 3:8, "But do not overlook this one fact, beloved, that with the Lord, one day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day." This Bible verse shows that the Lord has everything to do with both past, present, and future. And when we have a direct line to God, like we talk about in the Allspark podcast, then we have a direct line to a being that remains present both in our past and in our future, knows all that's going on in both of those, and he can bring those into the present moment where we are in our time-space reality. And therefore, I believe that being present doesn't just have to do, you don't have to completely block out all of your past and completely block out all of your aspirations for the future in order to remain present. They do have a place there sometimes.
Yes, because the gift of presence is a rare and beautiful gift. To come unguarded, undistracted, and to be fully present, fully engaged with wherever we are with at that moment.
Yes, and sometimes our past experiences have a lot to do with how we can affect people in the present.
Absolutely.
Another reason for connecting in the present is being able to connect with people who have similar goals and aspirations as you, like-minded people, so that you can learn and grow together towards a certain goal or aspiration. So that is being a gift to another being while also being a gift to yourself and to God.
Yeah, because your presence is the most precious gift you can give to another human being. And when this all ties in, but when you are the living embodiment of your story, of who you are. And what you say and what you do matters. And it reflects in the positive outcomes of your life. You become even more present in your presence because you understand the value of it in the first place.
I have a few thoughts on why that might be, Kevin.
Go ahead.
Well, if we are constantly striving to be who we once were, if we are constantly holding on to traumatic experiences of the past, and if we are constantly wishing we were somewhere else in the future, somewhere we are aspiring to go, then we can't really remain ourselves in this present moment. We can, one of the best ways to be present in the present moment is to imagine yourself, if you can't already see yourself as such, imagine yourself being the person who you aspire to become.
Yes.
And we talked about that in one of the holiday podcasts, actually. And Kevin, what we had talked about was how kids dress up on Halloween. And if you are going to allow your kids to participate in this, in the costume dressing up aspect of Halloween, then why not tell them or show them that they can dress up as who they want to become? Because I believe imagining yourself, viewing yourself in that light can be very powerful. But it's not powerful. It has the opposite effect. It disempowers you when you are wishing you were there and you do not see yourself as such in this moment.
Absolutely. That's why the meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away. Pablo Picasso, right?
That is biblical too.
Yep. So you've got to understand the value of your presence. For many people, they just want to be heard. They just want to be able to know that you're there for them. So many people are so busy talking about their own lives that a lot of times people become absent, distracted, and alone in the presence of others.
Yes.
So in order to be able to mitigate that, you need to be able to let your presence be known by being able to interject, being able to speak up in order to be able to be heard in your authentic way as well.
Right. But as you know, Kevin, there is a certain balance to that.
There is.
Because if you overstep and you're always interrupting people, you're always trying to interject, you're always saying my opinion matters more than your opinion, that becomes narcissism, right? That becomes pride.
Correct.
And that can really lead people astray, other people as well as yourself. So it's very natural, though, in this world to get down on yourself, to not allow yourself to connect with the godly spirit within you. And the Bible has something to say on this as well.
Absolutely. But the bottom line is, if someone doesn't appreciate your presence, make them appreciate your absence.
Sure. Indeed.
Because when you leave people better than whence they came, not only are you giving a selfless gift away, but you're also planting a seed in their brain to be able to say, now, I remember last year you said this. And it's the boomerang effect, right?
That's right. Yeah, allow your seeds to grow.
Allow your seeds to grow, right? And if you're doing it in a righteous purpose, a very well-founded, meaningful way, you'll find out that people will come back to you that needed that time out to be able to address that problem or that issue, to be able to allow you to be able to be heard on that day, right?
That's right.
So the reason why we like to connect with other people is because we like to be able to reconnect with ourselves. The greatest connection is speaking to one another.
Yes, that's one of the main purposes, one of the main gifts.
But it's what you say that matters or counts. So if you are positive in your presence, then you are giving away great value. But if you're negative in other people's presence, all you're doing is withholding them from being able to live a life, from having a life that was worthy to them in the first place.
Sure, and there is a degree of correction that we need to take if we see someone going down the wrong path that we care about.
Mm-hmm.
But if there is no progress being made, no matter what we are saying, then, allow your seeds to grow. Seeds have been planted, allow them to grow.
Absolutely. So, getting back to the most important part, belief in what you say,
Mm-hmm.
belief in how it's said, and then having the prayer ability to manifest the outcome in a positive way in their lives today.
Mm-hmm. Very, very powerful golden nuggets, Kevin. Thank you.
Thank you.
So 1 Corinthians 2:14 is the next Bible verse I'd like to read in this podcast. It says in 1 Corinthians 2:14, "The natural person does not accept the things of the Spirit of God, for they are folly to him, and he is not able to understand them because they are spiritually discerned."
Mm-hmm.
When you connect with spirit, you can have more discernment in these things of God. But when you are completely embodied in a physical worldview, in a physical body, then you're always striving after the chemicals shooting off in your brain. You're always striving after that next dopamine hit, that next hit of whatever substance you would like to call it, you'd like to pursue. And it kind of takes away from our free will. It doesn't allow us to, of our own free will, connect with God, connect with spirit, and gain discernment and understanding in certain areas of life. Especially when it comes to what you were talking about, Kevin, not having the self-confidence, the self-esteem to be able to speak up, to be able to let your voice be heard.
Mm-hmm. Presence comes with leadership. It's about making others better as a result of your presence and making sure that that impact lasts in your absence. So, now getting on to more biblical, what do you have for me, Noah?
Well, as far as being present, and in the Bible, there's a lot that is said about being present, but it always has to do with the presence of God, more so than just ourselves. It's always in connection with God.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot live authentically in this moment without being connected to God. We cannot live in our purpose without being connected to God. And there's a certain degree of reverence we need for God in order to ever get to that point. And what I'm talking about here is releasing the things that have hold of you in the world, giving it to God, and allowing God to be your comfort, allowing God to be your clarity, and allowing God to reveal what he will to you in that moment. I've had many experiences in my life, in my relationship with Jesus Christ, where certain thoughts have come to my mind that could not have been my own, could not have stemmed from my own knowledge and understanding at that time. It was a revelation. That's what a revelation is. Mm-hmm. It's a revealing of truth.
Right.
And so when you spend more time in the present with God, talking about your past, talking about your future, but also being right where you are in relationship with God, then God can reveal things to you that you never knew that you could have in life, that you never knew that you could understand.
Mm-hmm. And that's the godly right time, right place scenario.
Indeed. So Philippians 4, verses 11 through 12. This is Paul speaking. He says, "Not that I am speaking of being in need, for I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. I know how to be brought low. I know how to abound. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need. Through Christ, we can do all things." And that doesn't necessarily mean that we can walk on water. That doesn't necessarily mean that we can take off and fly without an airplane. But it means that whether we are facing plenty or hunger, whether we are facing rich or poor, we can be content in that moment. We can get through it. We can do it as long as we have Jesus Christ.
Absolutely. Because, as you know, listeners, you need a foundation. With all things in life, you need a foundation. You need a starting point. You need somewhere to begin. If you are trying desperately on your own without the assistance or the guidance or the subjective input from godly words and godly actions, then what's left is an absence of completion, of wholeness, of craving, of desiring, of being who you authentically were supposed to be in the first place. So it leaves you with a absence that really, for a lot of people, causes them a lot of grief, a lot of hardship, and a lot of despair because they know that they're not whole and complete there. And so, in order to be able to come home, to be able to come back, in order to be able to arrive at a place that makes the most sense and is emotionally, physically, spiritually rewarding in every fathomable, imaginable way, is to be able to listen to our ancestors, because they're your ancestors too in the Bible. We all came from somewhere, from somebody, from some place. Historically, it's important to be able to see how other people struggled and how other people did what they did and survived. We're all trying to be able to survive on this earth. We're all trying to be able to live better lives. We're all trying to be able to be better human beings. But the bottom line is that the best way that you can be you is to be one with God. Everything else falls short and becomes, and you'll realize this, a fake, phony facade. Because there's got to be more to life. There's got to be more to your personal life than just a just over broke opportunity, a bad relationship, unfulfilled relationships, unfulfilled job, right? No career, no future, and nothing to look forward to. There's got to be more than that. And there is. But if you don't have the willingness, if you don't have the desire, if you don't have the know-how to be able to acquire it, then you're hanging around and socializing with the wrong people. I cannot stress that enough. The second greatest gift you can give yourself, even if you are not qualified in a lot of areas of your life, it takes no qualification to be around those that are actually making the life-changing choices in their life that you want to have in your own life. You just have to be able to get into that social circle that makes the most sense for you to make the most amount of money. It's game over from there, because if you don't come from a great family, if you don't come from a great home, I have had wonderful life-changing experience being in the hearts and minds and lives of other people outside of mine. And the more that I socialized with those people that were actually living my desired outcome, I started to naturally, without a fight, start manifesting it too, because I didn't know any better. I was too dumb to be able to recognize that, I'm just following in their footsteps, right? When you realize the power and the authority that you have in your life to be able to be present and to be the present in other people's presence, then everything you say and do becomes a gift. And the first gift comes back to you, right? Because if you do unto others, if you had done unto yourself, then everything that you say and do will come back to you.
That's right. Yeah.
So we need to be able to have that in our life. People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did. But people will never, ever forget how you made them feel being present in their presence.
Right. Yes, and people will continuously want to boomerang back to that if they aren't able to connect with that anywhere else. So if you can be that positive vibe in their life, if you can be that positive image of clarity and understanding, someone who treats them as you would want to treat yourself, then they're going to constantly desire to be in your presence.
So, so now, Noah, scientifically speaking,
yes.
what can you share to be able to bring this topic home, to be able to let people know that it isn't just ancestral, it isn't just biblical, but there's a complete science behind how this process works. And we have a beautiful, in a new way, study series that will be able to cover this in great detail.
Well, thank you, Kevin. And it's important to know that it's not just an abstract concept, what we're talking about in these podcasts, but they actually have positive reflections and negative reflections, if it's a certain topic, that can make a difference, that can be shown scientifically. So I have a few Harvard studies that I'd like to point out. But first, I want to tell you what these studies are generally about. And that's the topic of mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of being in the present moment. It's being focused on one certain thing, one certain topic or other, or just the environment that you're in, and being able to receive the benefits from that. So mindfulness reduces stress, it reduces anxiety and inflammation. It improves attention, memory retention, mental health, overall mood, and helps sort out negative thinking patterns. So all these benefits and more come from mindfulness. And we talk more about this in the 4th episode of the OIC podcast, which is called Manifestation, because manifestation has a lot to do with mindfulness. If you're not mindful, you're not focused on what you're manifesting.
Absolutely.
And so mindfulness practices include focused writing and reading. Being able to journal is an important one. We talk about that in several episodes. Mindful conversation includes active listening and responding thoughtfully. You've always heard your parents say, think before you speak. It's a powerful teaching, and it's true. Speaking with anger often is not mindful. A lot of people, when they get angry, they spew out whatever is going through their head in the moment, and that's not thinking before you speak. That's just speaking. So mindless listening is listening without any interest. If you listen to your professor in college and you're not interested in the topic, you don't really care, often people doze off. I've been there. Went to college for one semester, and I was not interested in all my courses, especially the morning ones. It was hard to focus. I understand. So mindfulness meditation is meditation on one foci. And so being able to meditate on some powerful focus in life, whether it's a Bible verse or a quote by a famous person, being able to receive everything you possibly can from that quote, Bible verse, or topic is a powerful practice. Going to sleep, we are often not very mindful, but being able to focus on positive things or on what happened throughout the day, how you could have done things better, how you could have improved in your vocal reflections and in your vocabulary.
And let me add something.
Yes.
Is that in your sleep, you can memorize things 3 times quicker because you're getting yourself out of the way first.
Yeah, so you can actually play different audio files or things with calming music in the background and be able to retain that as you're drifting off to sleep. So now for the Harvard studies. At Harvard, there's a woman named Sarah Lazar who took magnetic resonance images of people's brains 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after attending an 8-week guided mindfulness course. There was also a control group who weren't doing the course. So an average of 27 minutes a day, these people doing this mindfulness course were practicing mindfulness. The images that she took of their brains showed a growth of gray matter in the hippocampus and structures associated with self-awareness, compassion, introspection, and empathy. So if you want to be able to treat others as you would like to be treated, this is a powerful, powerful practice. Learn how to be mindful. Participants reported stress reduction, which correlated with a decrease of gray matter in the amygdala, which is associated with the stress responses. Now, the other Harvard study that was done by two psychologists, Matthew Killingsworth and Daniel Gilbert, in 2010. They discovered that the average American adult spends 47% of their waking lives not paying attention to what they are doing. That is, they were not paying attention to their immediate surroundings. They weren't being present. Most of this time spent daydreaming does not make us happy either, is what they found. So in order to track this behavior, Killingsworth developed an iPhone app that contacted 2,250 volunteers at random intervals to ask how happy they were, what they were currently doing, and whether they were thinking about their current activity or about something else that was pleasant, neutral, or unpleasant. So collecting all this data, they found that people were happiest when they were making love, when they were exercising, or engaging in conversation. So making love and engaging in conversation, both very related to other people in our lives. Exercising is very related to our physical body, and this has a lot of health benefits behind it as well. Make sure you're getting your exercise. So they were least happy when they were resting, when they were working, or using a home computer. So very interesting finds by Killingsworth and Gilbert at Harvard University. So those are the two scientific studies I have for you on mindfulness today. And what we can learn from this is there are tons of health benefits, tons of character traits that we can develop and grow that allow us to be a brighter light in other people's lives through the practice of presence.
Absolutely. Now, I leave you with this. Each day I am grateful for the moments that I can share with those I love and cherish. Each day I am reminded that I am here. I am present. I am alive. Each day I am reminded that I can breathe in and breathe out. Each day I'm reminded that I am still taking part and moving towards my purpose. Each day I am grateful for this life I have and of what I can give back to it on purpose.
Indeed. And I believe that is a big part of our purpose in life, to be able to be the gift for other people, to connect with God and connect with ourselves. What Jesus taught us in the New Testament Gospels is that to love the Lord with your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself are the two most important commandments. And that has everything to do with our life purpose. So thank you for pointing that out, Kevin. And thank you, listeners, for joining us for another episode of Omnipresent Information Connection. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can reach us through the description at oicadvantage@inanewway.com. That's our email, and you can also reach us at www.inanewway.com. We look forward to seeing you there and meeting you on the next episode of the OIC.
This has been another life-enhancing, authenticated podcast aired by the OIC and brought to you by the faithful OIC sponsors and contributors. Please tune in every week and subscribe to our podcast. And while you're there, explore our website with all the posts, videos, and podcasts that we have created with you in mind. While you're on the journey through our website, you will see our Patreon page where you can become a faithful contributor yourself with the freedom to be a part of our team today. Thank you.